All right, welcome back to the program. Joining me right now is my guest, Olga Fleming, who is the founding partner at Oruga Investment Limited. Olga is joining me from Poland. Hello, Olga.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing? Quite a while. It's nice to see you after like some months. The last time we saw was in November last year at the African Economic Congress here in Abuja. You came all the way for us. Thank you very much. Olga, good to see you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm glad to see you too.
Let's start with, just speak to me about the handling of coronavirus cases, even in Poland where you are right now, because I know that I think in Poland you have about 37,000 plus cases, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so speak to me about it. How is it going on there?
It's not really that bad because all the cases are focused mainly in the mountains region. That's why in Central Europe, Central Poland, we don't actually feel that. And well, the situation is more or less back to normal. We have restaurants open, some flights are back here. We can go out normally. We can go to restaurants. Of course, there are some, cautious measures. We have to wear masks when we enter the building, but overall situation is not really that bad. There are some restrictions on the amount of people entering some spots, like public places or malls, and there are some restrictions, but it's not really that bad as it was previously. So I can't say we're past lockdown, but we are not as strict anymore.
Okay, now let's move to the focus of the day, managing personal finance during this crisis, during this pandemic. Of course, we know that the coronavirus pandemic has been economically devastating globally. My first question is managing personal finance rules the same around the world, or it's a bit different country to country? Are the rules the same, or they are just a bit different country to country? The way you manage your personal finance in Poland could be different from the way I manage it here in Nigeria. So I just wanted us to establish that background.
I think it's about the same if we are speaking about the general rules of personal finance, about saving, about the funds that we have to have as a security fund, and other things that we follow as rules are generally the same. It's just that when you create portfolio, so you are basically a next step further to start saving and generating passive streams of income, it would be a little bit different depending on the markets you will be looking at. Because when you develop your investment portfolio to generate passive income, you either are looking at the local market or you are looking internationally. And in that case, it obviously would be different because you have different stocks, you have different structures for the investment in real estate. Also, from country to country, it differs. For instance, as per my knowledge, real estate investment is very profitable or quite profitable in many African regions, and it's not as profitable in Europe, right? So to some extent, it would be you would have more advantage investing in real estate because it's more secure and all these things. So basically, it depends on the portfolio. But the rules that we follow to stay wealthy and to stay secure and safe during recessions are the same.
I needed us to establish that background so that our viewers can understand perhaps where I will be coming from. It's good that you said there are general rules, but it could also depend on country to country. It depends on their financial rules, definitely, and what is available for people or citizens to look at. Now, from investing to budgeting to quite a whole lot of things, portfolio management, we've seen that a whole lot has been distorted. How do you handle personal finance in uncertain times such as this?
Well, to tell you the truth, every recession is something you should prepare to. And all investors and all people who know how to manage personal finance know that it's a repeatable event. Of course, the event that causes recession may be a little bit different. This time it's pandemic. Maybe recession will be worse than normally. But recessions happen now and then. And the better you prepared, then the more secure you feel. So in my opinion, and not only my opinion, in general, the rules are that during recession, this type of recession, those who were investing and managing personal finances and had this emergency fund, they felt more or less secure because even if you lost the job, you still have this 3 to 6 month emergency fund, which is enough for you to reestablish some connections, to probably start some business, to find a new job, even if you are living in the country where you don't have support from the government or you have little support from the government. So I think those who were managing their finance previously felt more secure. But this pandemic actually taught many people that it's a must to manage your personal finances, and you cannot depend only on one stream of income and dependent on your salary and living like that. Because every manager who was thinking like high standing managers in all the airlines, they were not expecting this stuff. Probably lower level employees were hesitant, maybe they will lose their job. But this situation is very different because we are looking at the point where managers are losing jobs and so many people are left without jobs. So I believe this pandemic will learn a lot of people to manage their personal finance, but you should be prepared for these kind of events in advance.
Let me go back to Poland where you are, and I'll just oppose this with what's happening in Nigeria. How are the Polish people, how have they been able to handle their personal finances amid this pandemic? Has the government been a little bit supportive in Poland? Like here in Nigeria, our government has put together a 2.3 trillion naira fiscal stimulus for businesses and also for households. Not the 2.3 trillion definitely, but some money's out of it for households and businesses. Is that is there a kind of support like that in Poland?
I think we're a little bit step back because we did get some support for entrepreneurs, but not really for families. At least I'm not aware of anything like that. As entrepreneurs, we got some funds for the social security payments. So basically our company we have also a company here in Poland, and we were not supposed to pay for 3 months of social security funds. There are also some other supporting programs for the smaller entrepreneurs because our entity is LLC, so we don't get that much of a support. But if we compare other Central European or other European regions, we are not even standing close to it. Because if you look at German market, where the company only had to apply for the support, and 2 days later they got like 18,000-20,000 euro to their account to manage whatever payments they had to. Here, for instance, in Poland, we didn't have any law which stated that, okay, landlords have to cut the payments. Because obviously no one is at the office and those are huge expenses. Normally you pay for the rent huge amounts. There is no such law, and most of the landlords were not even open to negotiations, specifically big companies. So I think there is some kind of problem is there, because I'm not sure what's the stats yet, because it's not open. We don't know how many companies went bankrupt, but I assume that amount will be huge.
Okay. Olga, for most continents around the world, even countries will definitely go into a recession this year, or perhaps an economic slowdown. How do we handle our personal finances, or how do we really handle ourselves in a recessionary economy where companies are shutting down, there are layoffs, there are a lot of furloughs going on? How do you really handle that when your earning power is less? Can we be preaching handle your personal finances well when your earning power is not as much as it used to be?
The thing is that always with the problem comes solution, and the recession is always a great opportunity, specifically for investors who had some funds. But let's move a little bit back, and those people, for instance, who could have lost their job, or their situation is a little bit worse, so they don't have this extra finance to start even saving some money to do the first steps into personal finance management. I do believe that looking at the infrastructure and whatever happens now with all the companies online, starting from Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, the first step is that they started working from home, which means the next step, they're most likely to hire people from elsewhere to optimize costs. Because if people are not staying at home, at the office, then there is no restriction for hiring employees only from the region. Right? So this is an opportunity for those who are seeking for some extra income and looking into some new opportunities. Because if you don't have active income, it's very hard to start managing your personal finance because you don't have anything to invest. You cannot have any background money to have a security fund or emergency fund, however you call it, which should be at least 3 to 6 months of your average monthly expense. So that is, you should, anyone who is in a situation where they want to start managing finance, but their current job does not allow them to do so, they don't have enough profits, or maybe they lost their job and they are looking for new opportunities, they should improve their active income first. And doing some freelance, doing some online work is something that can help you with that a lot. It's just that believing in something that, well, it's online, there is so much fraud happening. Of course, there is happening, but on the other hand, this is the market full of opportunities. And there are so many websites where you can look for the job, different testing opportunities. It's just that people sometimes are a little bit blind and don't want to look for those opportunities. So the first step is to come out and to look for the opportunities for extra income. The next step, obviously, do the emergency fund, because this is something where you cannot move without it. And this lockdown actually showed that those people suffering most, that those actually who didn't have any fund behind them. And the fund is somewhere between 3 to 6 months of average expense, as I already mentioned. And as soon as you generate this fund, you still have to save 10% of your overall income, at least 10%, to generate some money to start creating your passive incomes as well. So just an idea. I had a recently conversation on, I think, Instagram or somewhere else, and the person was like, oh, I know 2 or 3 languages. How can I use it? I was like, you have multiple opportunities. You at least can go and start translating. You can go and teach people the language, depending on whatever you feel comfortable with. But she was like, I have no experience. Yeah, we were at the point where none of us had experience, right, back then. So there is always a way to start. And you can have negotiations with the company. You can do something for free to show your willingness to work with them and to also understand if it works for you. So there are multiple opportunities that market brings. And this online version of our world currently is actually huge incentive and huge opportunity for all those who were suffering from being in this country or the other. See, for me, even I usually travel to attend events, but this summer, I don't have to travel, but I can attend even more events because you don't have to spend your time a day to get back and forth. So I'm just giving you an example, but those are multiple opportunities to use the current situation and to start managing your finance. And going further to investing, I just don't really want to give any tips because I'm not sure what's the market in Nigeria. As far as I know, real estate is something you can look at. But also, I think concept of I need so much money to start investing is absolutely not true. You can start investing with very little money, starting from $500. Someone started even from $300. It's just that investing is also a process. It's not like you invest 1,000 today and become a billionaire tomorrow or a month later or even 10 years later. It's a process where you have to have this mindset of a person that is creating wealth.
I like what you said in the sense that have the mindset of creating wealth, and not that wealth just comes through automatically or in 24 hours you're expecting so much returns. Let's take it to a bit about what you said, investing. Laws of investing could be a bit universal, but a bit local, depending on the markets which you're investing and in the country. For my viewers right now watching in Nigeria and perhaps across the world, because we have a lot of viewers across the world too, is there a universal rule or a universal process whereby for those watching us right now, they want to say, okay, fine, can I invest in Poland, for example? Can I invest, or how can I invest in stocks in America? How can I invest in foreign stocks? Because I know you can be anywhere and you can definitely do that too.
You can invest in various countries. It's just there are some legal restrictions. Restrictions can be either on your side, I mean your country, your origin, or your tax residency side, or it can be also in the country where you're investing in. So basically what we are trying to do when we invest is we check the legal background. We find a company, for instance, if you want to invest in stocks in the United States, you find a broker that works with foreign clients, and you learn what you are gonna do. And they tell you, for example, we work with these countries, but we are not allowed to work with these countries. And they will for sure be very open about it. Even though you cannot invest, for example, in the US, there are multiple regions that are not less attractive. Even China, many people are not looking in this direction, but things you can do in China, in many cases, you cannot do even, or get this ROI that you get in the US. So it's about analyzing the market. And of course, for instance, real estate, if you want to invest in real estate, you also can invest internationally. It's just the question is about management, because investors can be also passive and active. Active investor means, for example, I'm managing my own real estates. I have several estates. I'm managing them. I'm renting them out. I'm dealing with my leases and so on and so forth. I'm doing all the paperwork. And there are very passive investors who just want to purchase and be very absent. Like they want a managing company to do everything for them. And there are different opportunities like that. For instance, in Europe, you are more of active investor. But again, if you want to become a passive, you either find a management company or you can find a fund. And the other thing I assume everyone learned from this recession, that diversifying your investment is a must. Because if someone was very focused on commercial real estates, I think many of them went bankrupt only because they were way too focused. And we don't know yet what will happen next, because if they were, even if they had several office buildings, looking at big brands that are saying, okay, now our employees can work from home. And if they can work from home, means at least some of these estates are not necessary anymore, or a half of it, which means it will probably give us some decline in this market, in the real estate market. I've been speaking about real estate trends, and I think that's pretty much where will be the direction, also about the shopping malls. So basically analyzing the market, what happened previously and what can happen next. This is something you should do when you're investing, but obviously you can invest worldwide. There are maybe some restrictions on money movement. There can be some restrictions on investing, for example, in Poland. If a foreigner wants to buy an estate, if it's not an apartment, they gotta obtain a permit for the purchase from the ministry. But there is a way around. If they set up a company here, they can invest through the company as much as they want with no restrictions. So a good lawyer is also someone who can help you to avoid certain restrictions as well. And it's pretty open information, I think, if you start searching online and creating this mindset of an investor and looking for opportunities, because the more creative you are, the less, the more opportunities you have, and the less risk you manage. Because if you know where you're standing, it's not like you are risking too much. Obviously, risk is everywhere, but we're trying to manage it as well.
Trying to manage that risk. Olga, let's quickly take a break. When we come back from the break, we'll continue the program. Please send us your comments on social media, on our social media platforms. You can tweet at Nnaji, also Moneyline TV. You can join us even on Instagram. You can join us on Facebook. And don't forget, we are also on YouTube. Let's quickly take this break. We'll be right back.
You feel you have a savings goal, you have an investment goal, we can start. So the first thing I'll tell people is that it is not too late to start.
Some may say it sounds very simple, but it's easier said than done. What is actually how small one can start? All right, welcome back. Olga Fleming has been with me at least in the last few minutes. She's the founder of Oruga Investment Limited. We're looking at managing personal finance during this pandemic. Now, Olga, let's talk about if this crisis has given us an opportunity to realign our finances or perhaps reprioritize. Because even for me, what this pandemic also taught me, it's not that I didn't know it, but it reiterated it, perhaps for me to practice it more, is that there are some things that I can live without and the world will still be the world. I will still be myself. You understand what I'm saying? There are still a lot of things that I can do without and I will still be cool. You know, so perhaps what this pandemic has also taught, go for your essentials. So perhaps it makes you also reprioritize or realign your finances. Has it given you the other opportunity, though you are a serial entrepreneur, you're a real estate investor, did it give you opportunity to realign and reprioritize?
Yeah, well, actually, for the investment, if we're speaking about investment and personal finance, in terms of realigning, of course, when something like that happens, you should adjust to the situation as soon as possible. Specifically, sometimes the good option is also not to make any harsh movements, specifically if we're talking about stocks, because if it's already past the deadline for you to sell, then you should just wait and be very passive about it. And there is no point in crying over spilled milk. If you didn't know, no one knew, actually. We've seen what was happening in China, but we still were thinking that maybe, just maybe, it will not impact our markets as it happened with SARS many years ago, right? So now we were like, okay, what do we do with our finance as soon as things happen? Well, the best practice is not to sell too fast. I've seen the panic here that everyone was trying to purchase real estate, but there is a reason, because people were keeping cash. And what made me think and realize most likely that I don't want to keep as much cash as I was keeping previously, because I'm still a cash person. So it's not that I keep too much, but still with the currency changes, I've lost around 10%. Because we don't have euro currency yet. We have our own currency, Polish zloty.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I realized that not having an exit plan for the kind of situation that happened is something that would probably make you feel less secure. So you should understand that if something happens, like the recession or lockdown, and I had many events canceled, so it more impacted me not in investment circle, it's more of my business impacted, because our legal business here, we have law firm and investment company. So basically, because of the lockdown, people could not travel, and this business was almost out of business for 3 months. And now it's kind of coming back. But on the other hand, what made me realize that that's time to help people. So immediately my partner from Dubai, he contacted us to start doing some initiative for startups, and we are doing it absolutely free, pro bono. And we decided, yeah, why not? We should host events, help startups to grow, to pitch their ideas. And it's been like 3 months already, but we have huge success. The one startup from the Nepal, from the US, and all these people are raising funds. So it's not like the money are not there. It's just that the way to find the money, if you're a startup, if you're an investor, is a little bit different, because investors not always use their own money as well. But finding a new approach, talking to people and building relationships is something I've been doing much more than previously. And of course, I realized that, yeah, I've been telling all the time, oh, I cannot live without travel. It seems I can, because I've been traveling.
Yeah, because you travel a lot.
Yeah.
So you can live without traveling. And you can make money too without traveling a lot.
Yeah, you see, probably I would make more if I was traveling, but since we started more focusing on our coaching, I didn't have time really to spend time on coaching a lot of people, because I was always limited on time. But since I don't travel, since our other business was not fully operating, I realized, yeah, that's time just to do something else I didn't have time before. And it seems to be even for the best, because when you're in a routine and you're doing all this stuff, you're in management position, you don't remember already why did you start this business. But then when you see those sparkling eyes, when someone succeeds, it's definitely something worth doing, even though you don't have any financial feedback for that or backup for that. It's just something that is definitely worth doing. And for business owners as well, it's about relations, partnerships. I've built so many partnerships, new partnerships actually, during this time that probably wouldn't have time for that if it wasn't for pandemic.
Nice. Now let's talk about the fear. This pandemic, raised a lot of fear, and I used my word not cautiously, fear. I didn't say concerns, because some of us are even still afraid. A lot of us are fearful. How do you handle fear in this crisis that can influence your money making and your money spending decisions? Because we've seen the great lockdown across the world, a lot of fear around for people. I'm not making enough money. The monies that I've made, I've spent. My emergency funds are running out. How do you really handle the fear in this crisis? I think it was Warren Buffett that said, two emotions rule the market: fear and greed. So it's not a matter of greed now, it's fear. How do you handle that?
I think there was a matter of greed as well, specifically in stocks. But speaking of fear, how I manage personally that, I'm not a person to focus on bad things. Even if the things are not going my way, I'm always trying to find some positive things. Obviously, I've learned it during my 10 or 11 already years in business. So if the situation overall is negative, you are still trying to find some positive things in the overall situation and focus on these positive things and to get positive results and positive feedback from that. On the other hand, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to focus on my health, because if person is not healthy enough, you are more stressed, you are more focused on the bad things that are going on. So for me, why the investor mindset and money making mindset is also very important, because you learn how to accept the failure, how to accept these risks, and to accept the situation when not everything is going your way. And if you understand that's normal and to some extent you cannot impact the situation, then trying to focus on good things and how to change it is really, really, really helpful. As I mentioned, as one of our businesses, thankfully I diversify. So definitely it helped me a lot. But to all those people who were having only one stream of income, for example, their business or their job, and they lost their job, what I've been talking a lot on my social media is try to refocus and try to find new ways of approach and to find new ways of gaining profit. It's still possible. It's just that do not limit yourself to one country or to the borders. Just get as much information as possible from the internet, learn what people are doing, and try to put this blueprint in your business or in your job, whatever you want to do. Because I do understand that not everyone is a business owner. So yeah, I'm trying to change my focus immediately as soon as something bad happens. So I'm not the person to focus on the bad stuff. And it also something I learned. I didn't have it in the beginning. So obviously when I started my business, many things were going not as good as you expect it to be, and you just learn it with time. So whenever you feel like, okay, I'm focusing again on the bad stuff, you're trying to change your focus to the positive things, or at least to find something positive. For example, you didn't have much time to spend on extra education. There are so many courses now for free, for those people who were like, yeah, but I don't have money for education. You have Harvard, Oxford, and many other, I'm not sure if it's Oxford, but Harvard for sure, they have free courses. They have free available stuff. So maybe there is time to focus on something you haven't time before. That's my concept. I'm not sure if it's applicable just to anyone, but I think that's what helps a lot.
I think it's a bit applicable to me. One of my policies is that control what I can, anything within my sphere of influence that I think I can control, and something that I cannot control, I just leave it to the Supreme God to take control of it, and don't cry over spilled milk, If A is not working, can B work, can C work, I try as much as possible to do my best. But if my best is not good enough, then I succumb to the greater power. So I think, that's one of my roles. Now, let's take a look at this, which is, if you take a look at some personal finance habits, which a lot of us have imbibed over the years, do you think that there are some personal finance habits that this pandemic has busted, has really thrown out of the window?
I think overspending and overusing credit cards is something that probably was on the one hand, it was boosted, but on the other hand, for those who started managing their personal finance during pandemic, that was the one way for them to manage it, because they spent less. They avoided those extra expenditures and so on and so forth. So there were two categories of people. It either boosted because they are staying home, they want to buy something online, and all these habits of over consuming were boosted. But on the other hand, it worked pretty well for people who immediately realized they have to manage their personal finance, otherwise the situation may go really, really, really bad. So in my opinion, overspending and having your analysis of what are your monthly expenditures, what you spend on, and optimizing the list, you may find for sure like 10% of things up to 20% of things that are absolutely not necessary, including all those, coffee takeaways and so on and so forth. So I do believe that those who started managing their finance, it could have been improved a lot. But if someone was not, then they were probably just overspending, even though they couldn't go out and spend their money out. I know quite a few people who spend the same money. I don't know how they do that, but they still do that. And one of the biggest mistakes is actually, you can have your credit card. I'm not saying no, but if your credit card is being used in the wrong way, then that's something definitely to be avoided. So that's, I think, what was boosted rapidly in quite a few regions, unfortunately. And I don't recall any other skill that was probably overused during pandemic. This one probably is the most.
Okay, Olga, if we take a look at the way people have reacted to this crisis, how do you think that females and males have reacted to this crisis? Are females handling this crisis differently than males? Because even, sometimes, or just around the world, you see that perhaps a lot of males, like in Africa, a lot of males seem to be, breadwinners, though we're having a lot more independent women, financially savvy women right now. But do you think that females are handling this crisis differently? I don't want to go to the male because we are both females. Let's exchange ideas. Is there a way we handle it differently?
What I feel from speaking to my colleagues, business partners, because I'm actually in business, male-dominated business. So I can feel that they are more pressured than female are, just because they feel, the general pressure. They are male, they are supporting their families, and so on and so forth. That's for the general. Speaking for the management, I think female are more flexible and we adjust much faster. So if things don't go our way, that's the same way we have approach, right? The common approach of we are not crying over spilled milk. We are trying to focus on the things we can change and to adapt as fast as possible. And we are not trying to push things our way. Also, on the other hand, I've seen many female getting discouraged. So it depends on the character, I suppose. But female, if they are already in the circle, like they're very open business-wise, or they have some management positions, they would rather focus on the things they can do, they can achieve, and they don't feel as much pressure. So that's how I feel. If it's a different approach, I'm not sure if it's an absolutely different approach. I just think it's a general category of us trying to adapt to the situation. We adapt a little bit faster, and that's the only thing I can say. That's how I feel. I'm not sure if male will agree with me, but that's how I feel during the pandemic.
So from your perspectives, females seem to adapt, easily than males this time.
Yeah, that's my perspective. At least that's what I've seen. I'm not saying about some, specific examples, but in general, from people approaching me, why I have this opinion, because people approach me and join my coaching programs and so on and so forth. And from what I've seen, there were more females trying to start over, trying to adapt, trying to adjust to the current situation than males. And from the questions I get also on my social media, I can get the mood, right? So I can say that males are a little bit more stressed and more depressed. And maybe that's what causes for the female to be more open and to be more specific about what they want to do during pandemic. That's my experience. Maybe from region to region it may differ, because I know males that were super adaptive. They launched new projects during pandemic as well. So it's not a rule, but that's just my personal feeling on how the situation works currently under pandemic. I'm not sure how anyone feels about it.
Olga, do you see perhaps as a result of the pandemic-induced financial situation of a lot of people, do you see perhaps new businesses arising that will put our personal finances into shape? Because a lot of people may have used those 3-4 months of the great lockdown to be able to realign, to reassess their priorities and say, okay, fine, I can do this, I can work from home and still earn money. Do you see a lot of that? And what kind of perhaps businesses can you actually be seeing from now on?
Well, there are definitely many businesses coming from our coaching or mentorship for the startups. I can tell that they have great ideas, not necessarily related to the COVID or to pandemic. So those are the businesses also that are not really impacted by the lockdowns. For all those who are starting businesses, they should keep in mind that this lockdown may not be the last one, and those pandemic may not be the last ones. And as soon as you pivot your project, and specifically early stage startups, they have this advantage that they can change their project and adjust to the current needs so that their business would not be impacted by similar or somehow different events like that. So moving online, having these opportunities to develop the project in any region as you want, build relationship with investors. I do believe that there are quite few opportunities still on the market, and we've been talking to investors all the time during our events, and they're like, yeah, we are open. It's just that the project should be ready for the investment. And definitely, as I mentioned, cash is not king. Like, there was a specific time for the first 2 months, I think, of pandemic, investors were like, specifically, you know, startup investors and venture capitals. Like, they're like, yeah, we have to see what's going on. But again, right after the situation, they were like, yeah, we have to invest, we have to deploy the capital. It's just that the project has to be ready and we have to know what we are investing in. So focusing on what you can do is not necessarily focusing on something small. And that's my core probably tip for everyone who is thinking of starting their own business. There are so many investors, even if the banking system in your country is not working properly, even if the bank system is not giving you advantage of getting some loan, if your project is good enough for the investors to consider it and to invest in it, first angel investors, then venture capital companies, then that's definitely a way to go and to start building something different. You can look at the previous recession, which was really bad as well. There was like 2008, 2009. It was also really bad, and it was also global. And there were quite few startups that came through this period. It was starting from Uber. They were launched in 2008, and they were developing further. There were, I'm not sure if it was Dropbox, Airbnb, all those things that are a little bit different, that bring some changes to the world. Startups are actually pulling the world economy to some extent. So I do believe that all the entrepreneurs should not be discouraged. If you have some doubts whether you will be able to do that or will not be able to do that, you should focus first on your personal feelings and try to fix it. Because if you are not sure, then try doing some consultancy in this aspect or finding some clients that may help you a little bit to understand if you are suitable for this business. If you feel okay, then just start developing your project. You can attend multiple online free events to get ideas, business ideas. If we're speaking about business ideas, I always say there is nothing like typically a universal idea for just any business. Because for me, with my background, one business would be good, but other technical business, well, I'm not sure if I will be any help of it, right? Probably in some management position or managing processes, okay, but not necessarily a tech part of it. So building a team and looking for those opportunities, probably not only by yourself, but also finding those people who are really open to the partnership with you and really want to do something with you, is very important. And also it's a tip for you if you are looking for investors to invest in your business. Investors are more open to invest in a team than in one person show. So a team always shows them how you can cooperate, how you can build team, how the situation overall works for you, and so on and so forth. So first, not get discouraged. Second, there is no specific business just for anyone. Third, watch trends. So basically everything that is going on online is something you can look for, and always find the competitive advantage as well. So if your business is the same as Amazon, then why people should choose you? So you always have to have this advantage, competitive advantage to your business, so that people would choose your business instead of Amazon. And there can be price, even though I'm not after price dumping, but there can be multiple different opportunities and incentives, and in comparison to the other project, your project will win. And those are my general thoughts. Okay. Of course, many people say, okay, Zoom or whatever. It's not, there's already so many companies like Zoom. So I wouldn't even discuss something like investing. Like investing in Zoom is probably okay, but building a business same as Zoom, which is trending now, I would consider twice.
Okay. If one do not know the rules of personal finance or the steps, the tips, is this something that can be learned? Because some people do not have financial literacy. For you to be able to be savvy with your finances, you need to have a portion of financial literacy at your fingertips. Can it be learned? If it is, how do you do that?
I think it's always about the culture. No one had this, mindset since they were born, unless they were born in a family that was actually following already all the tips. Most of us, starting from me and most people I work with and coach and so on and so forth, it comes with time. It's just that the first step, if you don't have someone to follow, if you don't have money for coaching, just start from books. There are so many available books on the market. There are so many even free materials. You can get books online on YouTube, audiobooks, whatever. And even a book, like it's better to read even a very simple book like Robert Kiyosaki, but that better than doing nothing. And as soon as you start developing the skills, it's not only about reading book, which also happens. Like I've read so many books, but it didn't help me. Of course, it wouldn't help you unless you start implementing the rules from the books, at least one by one. And most of the financial education books will tell you first, emergency fund, saving 10% at least of your finances. And even if you start from these simple things and then grow to do other things, don't start from everything at once. Build a culture step by step. When you feel already comfortable with what you are doing, you can do a little bit more. But start from revising your finance, do your financial plan, do your financial, first of all, check up where you're spending your money on, then trying to focus what 10 to 20% you can spend less on which points of the list, then saving this money, focusing on emergency fund first. And when you have already more money than emergency fund, start focusing on investing opportunities. But really, even if you don't have the investor knowledge, that's what I didn't mention about diversification. It's not only about diversifying in different companies or in different real estates. You can buy REITs, which is real estate investment trust, which is already diversified. You can buy ETFs, and other things that have already professional managers, have diversified portfolios, where you don't really have to worry about the profits. They would be more or less the same. Of course, it's not day-by-day result, and now probably most of them drop, but they will go and raise again. And investing is not about 2 days, 3 days, and or even a year. You invest long-term. So if you follow the rules and try to find the simplest way for you possible, anyone can do that.
Yeah. I want to say many thanks to you, Olga, for joining me today. It's been nice speaking with you again. I hope it won't take that long again for us to connect. Anyway, we connect over social media, but seeing you here feels so nice. Thank you, Olga, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I've been speaking with Olga Fleming, the founding partner of Oruga Investment Limited. There's another Finance Friday. We've tried as much as possible to take you through managing personal finances as we battle this pandemic. Just before we go, let me tell you that we have a poll on our Twitter page. Yes, on our Twitter. What do they call it again? I can't even remember. That's our handle on Twitter, Moneyline TV. Join us there and tell us what you think. Has the COVID-19 pandemic affected your financial situation? That's what I've been talking about, at least in the last hour. So how this pandemic has affected your financial situation? You have 2 days left there, but right now you're with your phone. Just go to our Twitter handle, Moneyline TV, and vote. Tell us if this COVID-19 pandemic has affected your situation. If it has, yes. If it has not, no. That means perhaps you foresaw that the pandemic will come and you gave yourself a lot of buffers. No. Has the pandemic affected your financial situation? Not really. Tell us too. If you're definitely unsure about how this COVID-19 pandemic has affected your financial situation, also buzz us there at Moneyline TV. I would like to really hear from those of you watching us. So that's it for today. That's it for the week. I am Nnaji. Have a wonderful weekend. Continue to be the best version of yourself. It's time for AIT reports right now. I'll see you all Monday, God willing. Bye now.